Hollywood gasped when Ana de Armas walked into the courtroom, and then it happened. Tom Cruise froze. His reaction was so raw, so human, that everyone in the room couldn't believe their eyes. Secrets, tension, and emotions nobody expected. What unfolded next will leave you speechless. It was supposed to be just another routine day in court, a quiet, procedural matter that no one expected to turn into a spectacle. There were no red carpets, no flashing lights, no throngs of paparazzi waiting outside, no screaming fans hoping for a glimpse of Hollywood royalty. Tom Cruise arrived early, as he often does, exuding his trademark calm confidence. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, polished shoes, and a watch that whispered subtle luxury, he seemed like the embodiment of control. His face was unreadable, a mask perfected over decades of public life. To the casual observer, this was merely another private legal appearance, a matter to be handled with discretion. But Hollywood rarely allows for ordinary. When the heavy courtroom doors opened, everything changed. Ana de Armas walked in, and in that instant, the room's atmosphere shifted in ways no one could have predicted. She wasn't surrounded by chaos. She wasn't making a grand entrance or trying to draw attention. Instead, she carried herself with quiet confidence, an aura of composure and power that demanded recognition without even trying. Every step she took was precise, deliberate, and graceful. The chatter among the lawyers halted mid-sentence. Heads turned. Even the judge, who had likely seen countless high-profile figures enter the courtroom, raised an eyebrow. For months, rumors had swirled about unresolved legal ties between Tom and Ana, whispers of contracts, rights to projects, and agreements made during a chapter of their lives when their worlds were deeply intertwined, had circulated in Hollywood's inner circles. Some insiders even referred to Ana as Tom's ex-wife in private conversations. Though no public confirmation of such a title ever existed, these rumors, half-truths, and speculations fueled endless debates among fans and media alike. Yet in that moment, none of those titles or speculations mattered. The air seemed to thicken with tension, heavy with unspoken history. Every eye in the room was drawn to the two figures, who had once shared both professional collaboration and, according to insiders, a deeply personal bond. Tom Cruise looked up and froze. It wasn't a dramatic gasp or a sudden movement that gave it away. It was subtler, more human, a sharp intake of breath that no one saw coming, a fleeting hesitation in his posture, a momentary falter in the composed facade he had mastered over decades. His eyes met hers, and for just a fraction of a second, the unflappable, larger-than-life superstar appeared. Human, vulnerable, uncertain. Ana, on the other hand, didn't waver. She took her seat with quiet authority, straight-backed, focused, and seemingly unaffected by the tension she had ignited merely by her presence. The subtle power dynamic had shifted in an instant, not with words, but with presence alone. In that silent standoff, the courtroom felt suspended in time. It was a moment that reminded everyone that Hollywood's brightest stars, despite their fame, glitz, and glamour, are still bound by human emotions, past choices, and unfinished stories. That brief, frozen moment between Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas became a silent story of its own, a tale of history, unspoken feelings, and the undeniable magnetism of two people whose paths were forever intertwined. And for a few fleeting seconds, the courtroom wasn't just a legal arena. It became the stage for a drama, far more compelling than anything seen on the silver screen. Their history was complicated, intense, private, the kind of story that Hollywood thrives on but rarely reveals in full. What began as a professional connection, a meeting of minds on set, shared ambitions, and mutual admiration, reportedly evolved into something far deeper, something neither of them had planned or anticipated. There were no fanfare-filled announcements, no red carpet hand-holding, no staged public appearances. Everything was meticulously guarded, carefully choreographed in the shadows. Both Ana and Tom understood the weight of their choices. They were extremely cautious, ensuring that their personal connection never became fodder for the media frenzy that often consumes celebrity lives. Interviews avoided, photos discreetly taken, every action measured, calculated, and intentional. But in Hollywood, privacy is a fleeting illusion. No matter how carefully one shields themselves, the gossip mill churns relentlessly. Rumors have a way of leaking through cracks, spreading faster than wildfire, reaching ears that perhaps should never hear them. And inevitably, the world started to notice. Fans speculated. Insiders whispered. Journalists pieced together fragments of information. Yet despite all the attention, Ana and Tom remained enigma's figures whose private lives were hidden behind a polished, untouchable public persona. Insiders reveal that Ana, at one point, truly believed their bond could withstand the glaring spotlight of fame. She trusted him not merely as a global superstar with an unstoppable career, but as a man who had, in private moments, offered glimpses of stability in a world built entirely on illusion. There was a sense that she saw more than the star. She saw the human behind the fame, someone capable of loyalty, protection, and even vulnerability. That trust, once given, created a quiet intimacy between them, a shared understanding that went beyond scripts, cameras, and contracts. And then there was Tom. At the time, he stood at a crossroads. His career was at its peak, projects lined up, accolades mounting, and a reputation solidified as one of Hollywood's most dedicated and disciplined performers. Yet behind the carefully cultivated image, his personal life remained a fortress, guarded by iron walls built from years of experience navigating fame's pressures. He wasn't the type to let emotions override control. Yet Ana had managed, in subtle ways, to breach those walls. When things inevitably ended between them, it was not the stuff of tabloid headlines. There was no explosive scandal, no shouting matches, no betrayal for the cameras to feast on. Instead, the separation was marked by silence, a quiet, almost imperceptible closing of a chapter that once held so much promise. The end was dignified, private, and far from the chaos the public might have expected from high-profile figures. Yet, as often happens in life, the past has a way of resurfacing when least expected. A court summons, routine on the surface, suddenly forced the past into the present. Old emotions, unspoken words, and memories that neither had fully confronted were pulled back into the light. What had once been carefully compartmentalized was now unavoidable. And just like that, the history they had tried so hard to keep private was thrust back into the public eye, rekindling tension, curiosity, and a drama far more compelling than any movie either of them had starred in. As Ana de Armas took her seat across the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted in ways that no one could have anticipated. It was subtle at first, a faint pause in the shuffling of papers, the barely noticeable inhalation of breath from a lawyer mid-sentence, but the effect was immediate. Tom Cruise, sitting opposite her, betrayed the tiniest flicker of emotion, and it spoke volumes. Witnesses later described his reaction in hushed tones. His jaw tightened as if he were holding back more than just words. His eyes locked onto hers for just a fraction longer than expected. It was not the controlled, polished image of the movie star the public adored. This was something far more striking, raw, human, undeniably real. Ana, for her part, didn't flinch. She didn't shift in her seat, and she didn't look away. Every inch of her posture radiated confidence, poise, and quiet power. There was a sense that she had been preparing for this moment for a long time, not in court, but in life. She had walked into a room where history, speculation, and unspoken emotions hung thick in the air, and she refused to be intimidated. She held her ground, a quiet force that seemed to demand recognition without demanding attention. When the proceedings finally began, the tension in the room became almost palpable. On the surface, the case revolved around contractual obligations tied to a joint project that had never been released, a matter that, in theory, could have been handled with a brief exchange of legal formalities. But anyone watching could sense that this was far more than legalities and paperwork. The air crackled with unspoken history, with shared memories and the echoes of a connection that had once been intimate and complicated. The courtroom was no longer just a space for justice, it had become a stage, where emotions long buried under the veneer of fame were now quietly laid bare. At one point, Ana was asked to speak, and when she did, the effect was astonishing. Her voice, calm and measured, carried an unexpected clarity and authority. Each word was deliberate, each sentence composed. Yet there was an unmistakable strength that resonated beyond the walls of the courtroom. She was articulate, poised, and unwavering, conveying her position with the quiet power of someone who had long learned to protect herself in a world that often tried to define her. Tom didn't interrupt. He didn't look down. He didn't try to assert control or redirect the narrative, as many might have expected from a man of his stature and reputation. He simply listened, and in that act, the silence spoke louder than any outburst ever could. For someone so famously in control, so used to dominating not only the screen, but also every room he entered. The act of listening became almost revolutionary. It was a moment that revealed something rarely seen of vulnerability, a reflection, and perhaps even a recognition of what had been lost, left unspoken, and now irretrievably present before him. In that courtroom, the usual dynamics of celebrity power and image were stripped away. What remained was two individuals confronting a shared past, each in their own way strong, composed, and unafraid. And while the cameras and public eyes weren't allowed inside, the story of that moment, Tom's silence, Anna's poise, would ripple far beyond those walls, leaving those who heard about it to wonder what had truly transpired. Between Hollywood's most enigmatic figures, Hollywood insiders later revealed something that sent chills through those who heard about it. This courtroom encounter wasn't about money, contracts, or the business dealings that most assumed were at the heart of the case. No, this was something far deeper, far more personal. This was about closure, something both Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas had been avoiding. Consciously or unconsciously, for years, Ana wasn't there to attack, to humiliate, or to accuse. She wasn't seeking to make headlines or dominate the narrative for the cameras. Instead, she had walked into that room with a singular purpose: to finish what had been left unfinished, to reclaim her voice in a chapter of her life where she had once felt overshadowed, constrained, or silenced. Every step she took, every glance, every measured motion of her hands spoke to a woman in control of her story, determined to assert herself without resorting to confrontation. It was as if she had taken the past, with all its pain, ambiguity, and emotional weight, and compressed it into a moment of pure empowerment. Observers in the courtroom couldn't help but notice the subtle but undeniable effect her presence and words had on Tom. The man who had built a career on perfection, control, and dominance seemed to shift in front of their eyes. The confident posture he usually maintained, shoulders squared, chin lifted, eyes sharp softened. The untouchable aura he had perfected over decades of fame, action-packed films, and red carpet appearances began to crack, revealing a vulnerability rarely seen by the public or the press. For the first time in years, Tom Cruise looked human, fragile, reflective, and perhaps even remorseful. Though no words confirmed what anyone in that room sensed so keenly, Anna's delivery was precise, measured, and unyielding in its calm authority. She spoke clearly, asserting her points without a trace of aggression, letting her presence and voice carry the weight of everything left unsaid between them. And yet, even as she asserted herself, she didn't look at him. She didn't seek validation, acknowledgement, or reaction. She spoke, and then she allowed the words to exist on their own, leaving their impact to settle naturally. When she finished, there was no dramatic flourish, no raised voices, no visible tears, no over-the-top gestures designed to make the moment cinematic. She simply stood, collected her papers with deliberate composure, and walked out. Every step she took was measured, confident, and final. The weight of her presence lingered in the room long after she had left. It was then that Tom reacted, not with words, not with confrontation, not with spectacle. He exhaled sharply, a deep, almost audible release that seemed to carry years of unspoken tension and unresolved emotion. He leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes for just a moment, a gesture of surrender, reflection, or perhaps relief. Whatever it was clear. This chapter, at last, was over. The room, once charged with expectation and anticipation, suddenly seemed to release its tension. The quiet conclusion left an indelible mark on those who had witnessed it. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments aren't loud or public, they're silent, personal, and deeply human. In that moment, Hollywood's brightest star faced a truth he could not act around, and Ana de Armas walked away with her dignity intact, leaving behind a story far more compelling than any blockbuster could capture. The case concluded quietly, almost imperceptibly. There were no sensational headlines from official sources, no press statements, no public confirmations from either Tom Cruise or Ana de Armas. From the outside, it might have looked like nothing had happened at all, a routine legal matter resolved behind closed doors. But for those paying attention, for Hollywood insiders, and for anyone who followed the saga closely, the reverberations of that day were impossible to ignore. The buzz spread quickly, quietly at first, and then with increasing intensity. Social media conversations erupted. Entertainment news outlets speculated endlessly. Fans dissected every detail of the courtroom encounter, each nuance, each subtle movement becoming fodder for analysis and debate. Some sources suggested that Tom Cruise was shaken, but not by the legal proceedings themselves. This was not about contracts, money, or property. It was about seeing a woman who had once played a significant role in his life walk away without hesitation, without looking back, without allowing the past to hold her captive. The man known for meticulous control, for perfection on set and poise in public, had been confronted with a reality he could neither script nor manipulate. Observers noted a visible softness in his demeanor afterward, a quiet moment of reflection that hinted at the deeper human emotion behind the Hollywood persona. Meanwhile, Ana de Armas appeared to emerge stronger than ever. She had not only faced the past, but also reclaimed her voice, her agency, and her autonomy. Walking out of that courtroom, she demonstrated that she did not need a famous name to define her worth or validate her presence in the world. In that moment, she became a symbol of quiet resilience and dignity, proving that strength often lies in composure, calm confidence, and the ability to move forward unshackled by history. It was a subtle, yet powerful statement, one that resonated with many who admired her poise and self-assurance. Fans remained divided in their interpretations. Was this simply a legal showdown, a matter of unresolved contracts and formalities? Or was it something far more profound, a personal, emotional reckoning between two people whose lives had once been intertwined? At the highest levels of fame and scrutiny, the answer, it seems, lies somewhere in between. While the legal outcome may have satisfied procedural requirements, the emotional resonance of the moment extends far beyond any courtroom decision. It speaks to loss, reconciliation, vulnerability, and the enduring impact of relationships that cannot be neatly categorized or forgotten. One thing, however, is undeniable: that courtroom moment shattered the long-held illusion that fame protects the heart. Hollywood's brightest lights and most polished facades cannot shield anyone from the human experiences of regret, reflection, and closure. In that room, two of its biggest stars revealed their humanity in ways the public rarely witnesses. And as Ana de Armas stepped back into the sunlight, calm, collected, and undeniably free, one thought lingered in the minds of those who observed from afar. This wasn't just a case concluded. This was a chapter of life closed, a personal reckoning finalized, and perhaps the beginning of something entirely new for Tom Cruise. The question remains, was this his greatest loss, not in court, not in contracts or legal matters, but in life itself? A loss that no amount of fame, accolades, or cinematic triumphs could ever compensate for. And for fans around the world, the moment stands as a reminder that even the most untouchable figures are, at their core, human, capable of love, loss, and profound introspection.